Hey guys, Dan here with the final Roseanne episode review of the new season, season 10, the revival. It's called Knee Deep, and we're going to take a look at this episode, but also the season overall. Since it is the wrap-up, I don't really want to do like a whole separate video for that, so we'll just kind of all lump it in with this. But so this episode finds the Connors in very familiar territory, financial trouble, and something that has been ongoing since the beginning of the series, except of course season 9, which they win the lottery, but that has all been abandoned, thank God. So that really never happened in the real story of Roseanne, the canon, as it were. So here we find Roseanne, with her knee problem at its peak. She is so bad off that, she's calling out in the beginning of the episode from the toilet because her knee buckled. So how are we going to pay for this is a huge issue in this episode. And things just keep getting worse because Dan is looking at hiring undocumented people for his drywall job because he can't really afford to deal with his friend Chuck's company because they charge too much money. And really, I'm sure they charge, the fair market value, but for Dan, it's a little too much. And then the basement gets flooded, and so that is, as Dan called it, a $20,000 repair. So all of that is at the crux of this episode. A lot of financial stuff. So really, it's kind of like back to basics for Roseanne. In that very back to the first and second episodes, they are dealing with financial issues and how do we pay our bills and all that kind of stuff. So it really is a true return to form. Really, this episode and the last one, I think, are maybe the most old school Roseanne episodes that we've gotten this entire season. I mean, the first episode was nice to see everybody, certainly. And in retrospect, my A grade might have been a little high. But it was so great to be like home again, But it was a lot more political than Roseanne ever was. But again, that's more of a season wrap up, so I'll get to that in a moment. But this episode was great. I mean, it was. John Goodman was at his best here. He has been sort of the unsung hero of the new season. Sometimes he was only in a couple of scenes, but he really has always brought his A game to this show and this season. And this episode, he's got a great back and forth with Chuck in a very dramatic moment. And I'm glad that, without giving too much away, spoiler-wise, let's just say I hope that Chuck becomes a part of the supporting cast in the 11th season. Because I've always liked Chuck. I've always liked James Pickens Jr. I liked him on the couple episodes, or the couple seasons of Grey's Anatomy I watched. And it would be cool to have him. It would be nice to have at least one person from the old supporting cast as a semi-regular. I think really, like, we had 2 episodes with Crystal, one where she only had like one line. We had a couple episodes with Bev and a couple episodes with Chuck. I'm trying to think. Nancy, I think, was in 1. I mean, I know she was in 1. I think that's all she was in, though. David obviously was in 1. That was a much touted episode. I wouldn't really call him supporting cast from the original. I mean, he was in almost every episode from season 5 on, but it would be cool to see that next season. I am glad that we're getting a few more episodes next season, because I think that if they're going down this sort of path that they went for the last episode and this episode, I think that is just the way to go. I think the return to the basics works for them. I think that's why people tune in. I think people love this family, and so maybe this wasn't the funniest episode of the season, but it was maybe the most Roseanne-y episode of the season. in terms of what we expect from, the classic seasons to now. And everybody was in this. Everybody had a little something to do. I liked the back and forth with Darlene and Becky. They wrote a couple of good sparring barbs for them, and it worked. Lisa Goranson was fine. Bringing out the old Halloween box was fun. She pulls out the old Three Stooges head from the one season. So that was cool. That was a nice kind of throwback. And I loved that when they brought up Nat and Mary, the studio audience kind of went like, oh, a little bit, because of course Shelley Winters has passed. So it's, those kind of moments really, it didn't seem forced either to me. It really didn't, it seemed natural. It seemed, fun. Looking at that Halloween stuff didn't seem cheap to me. It didn't, I don't know. So I liked that, and I just thought the drama in this episode was great. Now, I thought maybe they were going to focus a little bit more, as I said on my last episode review, I thought maybe they'd focus a little more on Roseanne's pain pill addiction, which sort of reared its head and then sort of cliffhangered at the end of the episode. We didn't really delve into that too much, which I thought we were going to, especially because it was called Knee Deep. I thought maybe the pain pills would be a focal point. They weren't, and I guess that's okay. I mean, look, there's only 9 episodes. You can only do so much, I suppose, but I did think maybe that was a missed opportunity. But overall, I thought this was a really good episode, a really solid season finale. I'm glad that this is how they went out, because there were a couple episodes in the middle there that really, they just weren't up to par. They weren't up to snuff, to be completely honest. And I'm glad that these last couple episodes have gotten the series back on track. So I leave Knee Deep with an A-. Now, as for the series, season, I should say, itself, it was a little up and down, like I have said in this video. But I like that they have shifted, the focus from politics from that first episode. And what's funny is, I've read so much about, it's so politically charged. Next season they're going to do a lot more, family stories and less political stuff. Quite honestly, they did I don't know, an episode and a half of political stuff. Like, the first episode was really political. And then, the episode about the Muslim neighbors was political in a way for sure. But I don't know. Also, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't call the classic DJ Kiss episode political. It dealt with racism. It was an issue episode, but I don't know. Like, maybe I have a more narrow definition of a political episode. I mean, like, anything could be a political episode. Like, was it a political episode that Roseanne went to the school and dealt with Mark liking to wear girls' clothes? Or was it a political episode when Harris was selling stolen merchandise on Etsy? Like, to me, that's not political. It's just an issue of the day, but it's like, I don't know. Back in the day when Blossom had very special episodes, I wouldn't have called them political. But I guess since we're all so sensitive now, let's call it political. But so to me, Harris selling stolen merchandise on Etsy, that was a family situation. That wasn't necessarily political. So to me, it's just not. I think certain people and certain critics are making way too much of the politics. Yes, that first episode was very politically charged. And yes, was there a joke in this last episode about the president not spelling Illinois right in a tweet? Yes. But I don't know. Is that any different from, I'm going through season 9 right now as I'm doing the season roundups. Season 8 and season 9, there's so many OJ jokes. And now, season 9, obviously the jury has reached their verdict by this point, because there's been jokes about The jury was wrong, and now I need to find a jury of my peers that don't know what they're doing, or whatever. And like that to me is way more political than Harris selling stolen goods on Etsy. Like, so I don't know. It just seems silly to me that certain people have glommed onto that, and it makes me wonder: have you even watched the season? Or maybe you just watched the first episode of the season and you're like, oh, well, this is the politics show. Yes, that first episode was quite political. Was it the best way to get back in the door and get fans, on both sides? Maybe, maybe not. I thought it was fine. I mean, I'm a staunch Democrat, and that episode and this entire season has not deterred me in any way from liking the show. So, for it being so political, I don't agree with Roseanne's political views, but I still really enjoy the show. So it's like, how much is it really affecting it? I don't think any. But yeah, the jokes have certainly been up and down this season. I have made much of the questionable acting chops of Lacey Goranson, and to a lesser degree Michael Fishman. At the end of the day, though, those are, other than the couple episodes that, like, Becky is really a focal point, it's not really that much of an issue, it's really not. And Michael Fishman has never really had an episode devoted to him this season, so, he's all right. He just kind of shows up in small doses, and it's honestly fine. Lacey a little less so, but yeah, like I said, as long as she's in just a scene or two, or tossing a barb back and forth between her and Darlene, it's fine. So overall, I thought this was a good, solid return to form season. I think it's it's definitely better overall than the Will and Grace reboot, which I think had some strong episodes and had some weak episodes. I think the ratio is a little more 50-50 in Will and Grace's case than it is in Roseanne. And talk about a political show, like the new season of Will and Grace is way more political. And I align myself with their views, but it's like, I still enjoyed Roseanne more. So take that for what it's worth, everyone that's saying about how political it is. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed the season. I thought it was just great to see everybody back. The things I've been saying on the episode reviews. I thought, John Goodman, Roseanne Barr, Laurie Metcalf, and Sarah Gilbert, the four of them are they're all just such pros. Sarah Gilbert maybe a little bit less, I will admit that. John Goodman obviously has been working, a few movies a year for him, so it's like, that's no surprise that he is just, the stalwart that he is. And Laurie Metcalf obviously gets a lot of work as well. So the two of them are great. I would have liked to see more of Aunt Jackie. She was always one of my favorite characters. But maybe next season. And also, someone had commented on one of my recent videos about this, but where is little Andy, who is now not little, he's, probably 22 or something. But I had read that they were going to mention him, and unless I missed it, I know in the premiere episode they mentioned about Jerry Garcia, on that boat where they can't talk to him and stuff, which I thought was brilliant. I thought that was a good touch because, he was just a baby when the show went off the air, so it's like, no one misses him. Nobody really cares, honestly, if he lives or dies. But it might have been nice to get a mention about Andy, and I thought we were going to. I read that they had that in the works and something was going to be said. If it was, I missed it, and that is possible, I guess. But yeah, I thought we were going to get at least a mention. Would have been nice, because at least he was there for 3 seasons. He was, a couple years old by the time the show went off the air. He was talking a little bit, so it would have been cool to mention that. Also, just as a side note, I don't remember if I mentioned this in my review of the premiere or not, but I like that they sort of time shifted a little bit with Harris, because Harris would be about that same age, like about 20 probably now. I kind of like that they, amped it down a few years, to keep her in high school. I thought that was good. And really, why not? I mean, you're already abandoning the whole lottery season. So why not just, time shift a little bit to serve the story better? I think it worked. So for the season itself, I'm going to give that an A- as well. Maybe not up to par with a couple of the best seasons of Roseanne, but I think definitely a great return to form. There were really only 2 episodes that were kind of like not so good. Everything else was at least pretty solid, I think, in that sort of B plus A minus range. And then, you had a couple of A's in there too. So so I leave it with an A minus. So that is it for Knee Deep and the season as a whole. I do still have season 9 to review. I'm about halfway through watching that season. I binged 9 episodes or something yesterday. Wasn't good. It was a low moment of my week for sure. But so I've got that coming up, and then I may also be doing some other stuff leading up to next season. Maybe some Roseanne movies and whatnot. So keep you posted on that. I'm not sure what the next show I'm going to tackle will be. I can sort of contemplate more on that when I do my season 9 review, I suppose. There's a few things in my head. I don't really want to do Murphy Brown. I don't think that has quite such a great fan base that I could do, season reviews of that. Maybe, but I don't know. I would kind of like to, review or go back through those at least myself. Before the new series starts, but we'll see. But that's it. Comment below, subscribe if you haven't yet, and join us on Facebook if you haven't done that yet either. That's just Dan Reviews It over on Facebook. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.